Okay, first off, I'm going to apologize for posting this video right in the middle of my my 210 heart transplant two-part video. Or I'm trying to make it into a two-part video, but I actually wanted to make this video a little while before I put the 210 videos up, and it just didn't work out. Especially because school was throwing me off too. I had two tractors that needed work, and I had to shuffle off between them, and I said, you know what, I don't need the LT133, so let me fix that and try and get it done first. Then I'll have more time to work on the 210 and do it right. So I switched over to the LT133 for a while, so this is kind of going to screw the video up, or screw the saga up a little bit, but just bear with me, alright? So here's the LT133 after all the work was done to it. Your first impression might be that she looks a little uglier than she did at first, and truth is, this tractor was a stubborn piece of crap. It really was. Just had one problem lead to another, and then that led to another problem, and I ended up fixing a lot more things on it than I had expected. This tractor was such a mess, but I felt bad because I got it off of the original owner, and I mean, he'd owned it for 13 years, and he'd used it all the time until he got his 325, and then it just sat for like a month or two before he decided to sell it, and then that's when I found out about it, and I didn't want to like scrap it or anything, because everything on it was still good. Under all the dirt and dust and wear, everything was still pretty good, in good shape, so I figured I might try and, you know, fix it up and keep it running and everything, and then at the same time, I looked over the tractor again, and there was so much wrong with it. I said, gee, I really don't know if I should do that. So for the longest time, I was debating whether I should, you know, take the time to fix this thing up right and sell it, or just junk it. What I planned to do was pull the motor out, because the Kohler was running good at the time. Pull the motor out, scrap the mower deck, because it was all rusty and had a couple holes punched in it, and then sell the tractor as a rolling chassis and just keep the bagger. Maybe either sell the bagger at some point or trade it for a power flow, or see if I can get it to fit up on the LA150 here, which would be a little bit of a chore. But I don't want to get a bagger for this tractor, because the transmission's starting to finally go, because he's getting hours on her now. So there's no point in buying a bagger for it if I'm just going to get rid of it at some point. You know, they don't last forever, but this tractor is much smaller, and it's a lot less complicated than the LA150, believe it or not, but it's a much better performing tractor, and the LT series were known to be very good machines in their time, and this thing was quite an adventure. So I'll start telling you about what I've done with it, because a lot of things have happened to this tractor. So the first thing I wanted to do was figure out why it was such a hard starter, because I know the Kohlers with these little Walbro carburetors had a lot of trouble. Over time they build up a lot of, they build up a lot of dirt and crap on the inside, and it makes them much harder to start and run properly. And when I got the tractor, I used to have to crank it for about a minute and a half before she would finally start, and I said, yeah, this ain't right. So I started checking all the usual stuff, like the gas and spark and everything, and I didn't want to have to go all the way to rebuild the carburetor. That was before I researched about these carburetors. I didn't realize the carburetor rebuild kits were so cheap. I thought they'd be a little more expensive, but I'll get to that later. So instead of worrying about the carburetor first, because I'm not the best with working on carburetors, I checked all the electrical. I figured maybe it wasn't getting spark or making a good connection. So I disconnected all the electrical. The old battery, the old John Deere battery, was pretty much worn out, I came to find out, because I took the cables off the ground and the positive cable. I took the solenoid out, and I checked all the relays there. And man, he's flying fast. I checked all the relays and everything checked out good, and I went over the solenoid and I cleaned up all the connections and everything, and replaced a couple of the nuts on there, not all of them, but just a couple, and then I went and cleaned the connection to the starter too, just to make sure everything was connected properly. I threw everything back together, and it was just, I would turn the key and it would just go click, 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 like real fast. And I said, what the hell is going on here? And it turned out the battery was junk, which actually I kind of expected, because it was 13 years old. and I knew it had never been replaced because it still had a 2001 tag on it, which was kind of funny, but I should have figured the battery needed to be replaced anyway. But this tractor was going to be a very low budget tractor because it was going to need a lot of work, and I hadn't really planned to dump a lot of money into it if it wasn't worth it. So I was trying to stay low key and everything and not spend too much money. So I didn't want to really get a battery for it. But one day my grandfather was nice enough to come home with a new Autocraft battery, which he got off of a buddy of ours who's an interstate battery dealer, so I would assume they might be made by the same company. But it's just a basic little lawn and garden battery, 300 cold cranking amps, which is sufficient for something this size. It's nothing crazy. So my grandfather came home with the new battery, and I said, you know what? Maybe there is a little bit of hope left in this tractor. So I mounted the battery down. It sits in the bottom there when it's held on with this bungee strap, and sure enough, she fired right up and she was running good. And then, I started just messing around with it and running it a little bit, and the old dry belt was off of it, so it wouldn't dry. So I was just kind of, rolling it in and out of the shed and running it when I wanted to, just to see how she did. And after a while, she wouldn't start. It was running one time and then it just cut out, like it wasn't getting spark. And it was definitely getting fuel, because I could see fuel coming in through the filter here, which is pretty clean. Well, it was pretty clean. It's probably going to need to be replaced now. It was getting fuel through the filter, and I took the gas line off, and it was getting through the carburetor into the lifters. These are hydraulic lifters. They're not regular valves like the plate says. But it was getting fuel into the motor, so it must have not been getting spark. And then I learned that these little Command Series Kohlers, for some reason, they have a habit of, the ignition coils crap out on them, because these use pointless ignition. They don't have breaker points like the old ones, because that's old school now. It's just a little magnet. It's basically an electromagnet, and it mounts in front of the flywheel, and when the flywheel spins around, the magnet rubs, and there's a 10,000th of an inch gap between the two magnets, and it creates a little electrical impulse, which creates the spark. And so I figured, since it was getting no spark, I pulled the old spark plug out, and in the process, because it's in such a stupid spot, it's not it's not easy to get to. Kohler puts it all the way in the back there, which is kind of stupid. I actually broke the porcelain, broke the whole tip off with the old spark plug, so I just replaced it with a new one that I had sitting around, and it turned out to be the right type of spark plug for it anyway. So I replaced the spark plug, and it still wasn't getting spark. So I ended up replacing the coil with a good one off of eBay, and I bought a feeler gauge and gapped the two magnets in the middle and got it set just right. And then after that, it would start right up and it would run like it was getting spark. It would run for a while, and then that led to a whole nother problem. It would run for anywhere from a minute to 5 minutes, and then it would just start to bog down and die and sputter, and like it was running with the choke on, and it would just die. I couldn't figure out what was going on with it, so it was a pain. I kept running it and troubleshooting, and I took the gas line off and let it run itself out of gas, because I thought maybe it was getting too much gas. So I deprived it of gas. I purged the lines out, and I ran it again, and it was running good. It ran for a little while longer, and then it filled up again. So I said, okay, maybe the carburetor float's filling up. It's like it's got a crack or something in it. So I ended up taking the carburetor off, and I found out, when I watched a couple YouTube videos, I found out that these carburetors are very simple. It's a Walbro, but it's not like the one I had on my 12-horse Briggs & Stratton that I had. That was 2 pieces. That was older, so it was more sophisticated. But this was actually much easier. It only has one jet. It's the main jet is not adjustable. It's fixed, and then it has the idle adjustment screw, which is right there. But I watched a YouTube video, and I couldn't believe how simple it was to rebuild it. I was just paranoid, because I haven't done the best jobs when it comes to rebuilding carburetors, so I didn't know how this would turn out. But I managed to do it over a couple days. I just pull these 2 nuts off here and slide it off with the studs, and soaked the whole thing, or tore it apart first, and found out that the float didn't have a crack in it. I think the gap might have not been set properly, so it was opening too much and letting too much fuel in or something like that. So long story short, I pulled it all apart and soaked it in the carburetor dip for a couple days. Blew it out good this time, because that's the mistake I made last time. I didn't do that. And then threw it all back together and primed it up and everything, and she fired right up and ran perfect, and she's run perfect ever since. So I was real happy about that. And it was only $13 for a carb rebuild kit. So it has the gaskets and the needle and seat and everything, and the needle and seat actually sit right in the middle of the float where the pin for the float slides through. So it was pretty simple. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot to it, but I started her up and she's run good ever since. She had the oil was a little bit low, so I just put a little extra in and topped it off. Actually, I'm surprised I didn't mention this earlier. You might notice there's no hood. What happened in the... Actually, right after I took the original video with this tractor, I took the hood off the next day, and I didn't realize that there was no hinge on it. It was just held on with a bungee strap, and the hood fell over flat on its face and just cracked in half. And I looked at it and said, wow, this is a really cheap type of plastic. And then I picked it up and dropped it on the ground, and it cracked even more. So I just ended up, I unscrewed the grill, and I actually sold the headlights and the grill for 30-something bucks, $45 I think on eBay. I'd used the money to buy some other parts for this, so that actually worked out good. But I know these things, the weak spot with them is the plastic hoods, the two-piece hoods, so I figured, you know what, this thing ain't worth it, so I just broke it down and threw it away. But I got it cleaned up and everything, and there was a lot of grease under it, so I bought some degreaser and wiped the frame down and everything and got rid of most of it. There's still some under there, but, you know, that's going to happen. So I changed a bunch of stupid little things, like there was so much dirt and grease on the grease fittings on both the mower deck and on the axle. Those are the only grease fittings on this tractor, from what I understand. There was so much dirt on the grease fittings that I couldn't get to them. I couldn't even wipe the dirt off to get the grease gun on them. So I took the old grease fittings off, and I replaced them with new American, you know, standard socket grease fittings. I think they're either a 1/4 inch or 5/16. I can't remember, but I cross-threaded them in there. But it's not like, you know, it'll be easier to mess with next time around, and it's not like you take grease fittings off normally anyway. And then I just rednecked this, and I just stuck a couple hitch pin clips in here, because that's all you use to hold the tie rod ends on. There's no ball joint, and there's no adjustment even. It just comes right down from the steering, because I tried to fix the front end alignment and it didn't actually do anything. That you can see that wheel's straight and the left wheel's tilted in a little bit like it's pigeon-toed, but you know, it's just a cheap tractor, so there's not going to be much to it anyway. But that was one of the many things I fixed on it. And then the drive belt popped off, so eventually I figured out how to get the mower deck off. It was pretty simple. The guy I got it from had the lift linkages held on with metric bolts, because the whole tractor has metric bolts on it, so he put 2 metric bolts on there, and I busted them off with my impact wrench, and I replaced them with those clevis pins and clips, and but I got the mower deck off easily, and the mower deck's a different story. But I got under it, and I bought a new drive belt for it off of eBay, and somehow I made a mistake and ordered the one for the LT155, which was just a little short. So I had to return it and get one for the LT133, but it was cheap. It was a John Deere brand belt. You should always get John Deere brand belts with these things, because they're the only type that really fit these pulleys. But long story short, if the new belt fit right on, and I had a little trouble looking at the diagrams, figuring out how to, you know, route it and everything, because I've never changed a vertical shaft drive belt before, but it runs along the outer edges of the frame where the idler pulleys and everything are. You can see where that new carriage bolt is right there. I had to put that bolt in because the old bolt that was there actually broke off, and the idler pulley was just hanging there. So I fixed that. I fixed the springs that had come out. Then, to complete the drive line, all 4 tires leaked, which kind of sucked. And these are the original tires here. They're Titan Super Turfs, I believe. All the LT series had these just cheap little tires. These 2 are original, but these 2 were replaced at some point, and all 4 of them still leaked. The left rear leaked the worst, and I couldn't even move it. It was, I mean, you can see how it was so cracked. I couldn't seal it up or anything. So I stuck a tube in it, and blew it up, and I had a problem trying to slide it on the axle shaft with the key, but I got it lined up, and now that one is holding there fine. This left front actually leaks a lot, so this needs it too, but I've run my budget empty, so I'm not putting any more money into this tractor, so it's up for sale now. The seat, you can see I finally did something about it, because this had the ugly seat from the LX176. I peeled I used WD-40, peeled the black duct tape off, and I bought some yellow duct tape, which is pretty close to John Deere yellow. This seat's faded, so it doesn't seem to match, but then I found out that the seat pan was so rusty because the seat pan and the cushion were disconnected. You can see the rust holes here. This is where the original seat switch bracket was mounted on the LX. And we had trouble trying to mount it up, and then you can see down there were two mounting tabs, I guess you could say, with holes in them, and you slid the pins through here, and it would hold it on there. But I lost both of the pins because there was no holes in them to put a clip through them. So both of the pins got lost, and I don't have them. And I figured, you know, well, we should probably just use a regular clevis pin and clip. So that's what I ended up doing. And then the two mounting tabs broke off. So my uncle and I were in the shop one day. We just rigged something up real quick. Took a piece of aluminum, cut it to the right length, bent the ends with a torch, and then rounded the ends off with the bench grinder. And then there were two holes already drilled in the bottom of the seat with the threads in them. We just took two bolts, two half-inch bolts, and stuck them in there, and then JB welded it. You can see this JB weld right here. We JB welded the whole thing with the bolts. The bolts weren't the right size for the threads, but we just stuck them in the holes anyway, and JB welded it in there, and it's held up great. Gotta love redneck engineering. This whole tractor was a mess of redneck engineering, but it all works good. And then this is also redneck too. I just took a couple of bottle caps and stuck them on there because what happened was this top of the springs were getting caught up in the rust spots, so the springs would get caught up in the seat. So I just put those there to cover it up. And then finally, this mower deck was a big mess. I'll keep posting pictures of it. This was a big mess. This gauge wheel was completely off of it. It was sitting on the fender when I got the tractor, and it looked like something had either cracked off or it got melted or broke off or something. But there was it was already patch welded in several spots. You can see there's patches there, which were there when I got it. And then there was a big patch here on this side where this wheel was already welded. So this thing had been through quite some abuse. And then there were two holes punched in the middle, which was really weird, and they weren't rusted through. It looked like my neighbor who had it before hit a couple rocks or something with it, and they just got tossed around and punched holes through, which is really weird. We didn't spend too much time trying to figure out, you know, what had caused it, but it was just weird. It must be a really thin style deck, and this is a different 38-inch deck than like the LX series and the 200 and 300 and most of them used. So it's cheaper anyway. You can see the belt's old and cracked and original, and it's lost a bit of tension, but it's not, you know, not too big of a deal. I mean, like I said, I ran my budget out of money, so I don't have $40 to spend, and that mower deck belt's a lot more expensive for some reason than some of the other ones, like the ones for my 210. I don't know why, but anyways, you can see we got some 3/16 steel, which was a lot thicker than we anticipated, and we patched here. Well, we ground it down and heated it up with the torch. We patched there. We put a big triangular patch in the middle there, as you can see, that race section. And then we patched here. My uncle welded the gauge wheel back on it. So that's that. I primed and painted it over, and it looks okay. It's not great, but it looks okay. I replaced one of the gauge wheel bearings, or bushings rather. You can see how this was getting worn here. That was kind of annoying. Like the gauge wheel was like almost hanging off of it and was wearing away, which was really annoying. But we fixed that with an extra bushing I had laying around. The front hanger yoke, or draft plate, whatever you want to call it, somehow got bent. It was shaped like a hook almost, and I couldn't figure out what had happened to it. So I actually had a guy on my tractor farm, Worley, out in Iowa. Thanks again for your help. I appreciate it. He helped me with a lot on this tractor. It was a long thread going, but he was nice enough to send me a new yoke for free off of one of his LT155s. and just stuck it in there and welded. I bolted it down there and then stuck the pin through the top to lock it in, and it's worked fine now. I still have to mess with the leveling of the mower deck a little bit because it doesn't quite sit flat, but it's only got gauge wheels in the front, so that's part of the problem. And part of the problem is because the tire pressure isn't even in all the tires. This right rear, like I said, leaks. So that's that. And then, just like how this got bent up, the mower deck PTO engagement lever got bent up too. I don't know if you can see it. Long story short, the fact that they had to drill a hole through to keep that spring held in there with a cotter pin was just stupid. So I bought a new 3/8 inch rod instead of a metric rod, and I put a nut on there, and I had my uncle weld a washer. We put the whole thing together, and then I had my uncle weld a washer to the end of the spring to act as a stop, because the spring would just pop right off. And what happened before when I tried to build one with a threaded rod was it snapped in half just like the old one did. So the fact that they drilled a hole for a cotter pin in the first place is stupid. So we fixed that, and then we threw it on the tractor, got it adjusted with the the linkage in the proper spot, and hooked everything up and tightened it down, and it works good. I have the height set at 1.5 inches, so that's as low as it can go. It doesn't go all the way down. And then like I said, the belt has lost some tension, so it's not going to pull it as tight as it can go. But sometimes the idler pulleys and the guards hit each other and spark. But that's nothing to worry about. Like I said, the new belt will fix that. So that's pretty much the whole tractor. I mean, there's a couple other things that I've tried to mess with and fix on it, like the seat switch. Since this wasn't the original seat, I just cut this off, and it looks crappy, but I zip tied it all together and taped off the ground. There was 3 wires, and this one was the ground, and it wouldn't start without the ground. So I just taped that off to clean it up, and I have not had to press that Rio button once, which is great. And then because that was thrown off, you can see that wire down there. That's for the Rio, actually. There's a plug on the transmission down there, and I found out that wire was unplugged, and that was actually making the Rio not work. So I could actually back up and reverse while mowing, and then when that was plugged in, it would shut off, which was the exact opposite of what it's supposed to do. So just because the seat switch was bypassed, it bypassed the Rio on the transmission. So all I did was just zip tie it. I unplugged it and zip tied it to the frame rails there, as you can see, and it's worked good. I haven't had to mess with it. So, and then just quick look at the bagger. It's in good shape. I've been using it a little bit here and there. There was a plastic sleeve on the end of this tube here, so you could slide this in and hold it there, and that piece kind of broke off because it's just cheap plastic. And what I did was I actually ended up taking a bolt and a nut and sticking it in there and just using that to hold the chute. You can see down there, to hold the chute to the tube. And so far it's worked pretty good. It's not sick. I didn't tighten it because, well, for one thing, it wouldn't tighten because it's sitting on plastic, but it needs to be able to flex when I lift this up and down, because whenever I would go over a bump, the chute would fall out. But I fixed it now, so it's all good. So, God, it's over 26 minutes. So, clean the throttle up too. The throttle was a little hard to mess with. So, here we go. Just have to move the throttle down real quick. You can see she runs like a top. I kind of wish I had taken some video when I was having carburetor problems so you could see what was going on. It just acted like the float was filling up and getting stuck and everything and bogging down. But it was definitely worth the $13 carburetor kit because she runs like a top now. Sometimes when it's real cold and it's been sitting for a day or so, you can hear a bit of a knock from the hydraulic lifters, but they're not adjustable as far as I know, so there's nothing you can do about it. And the throttle, like with most of the Kohlers I've owned, the throttle's not very sensitive, so you have like 3 or 4 settings and that's it. That's about 3/4 throttle there. And then there's wide open throttle, which is really quiet. show you the mower deck.
Flying. That's just from the idler pulling rubber, but a new belt will fix that. Those high lift blades are great for mulching. I've seen guys that use them without a bagger. They just put a plug on it and it mulches the leaves right up because it chews them up so quick. I'll take it out for a quick spin on it. She drives real good. It's a little... I think in the last video I said it was a Dana 5-speed transmission, but it's actually a Spicer. But it's, you know, just a simple little 5-speed. It's got this shift on and go, so you can shift without using the clutch, which is real nice. The Yard King had something like that too, but that was a, I think that was a Peerless transmission. That had 6 speeds. This one's got 5. This is its top speed right here. This thing is just a clutch. It's not actually a brake, so it doesn't stop the tractor. So if you have to stop, you just have to shift gears real quick. And you go from 5 all the way back down to 1. And it turns really sharp too, which is great. It turns sharp, has a real sharp turning radius both ways, so... running good. Not missing a beat. Picking the leaves right up. It's real quiet at all throttle ranges, which is really cool. These little Command Series Kohlers are great working motors, and I'm glad I finally got the chance to own one because I've heard so much good about them, and they'll definitely run forever. They're very forgiving. It just sometimes when things go wrong with them, it's just they cause a lot of problems, like the stupid little coils. But that's from what I've heard, that's a design flaw. So. Alright, it's about time for me to shut up. Thank you guys for keeping up with my channel, and since it's Thanksgiving, I'd like to wish all my subscribers a happy Thanksgiving, even though I'm a couple days late. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving, and I'm very thankful for all my subscribers. I think last time I checked I had 415, which is a blessing. I never imagined that my channel would have that many subscribers, and I just want to thank you guys very much for your support and everything. And sorry for the long hiatus that I've been on. It's just, it's been hard, you know, between school and everything. Now that this thing is up for sale on Craigslist, the 210's the next project, and I'm finally getting back to it, and she's she'll be back together and running in no time. I just need to get this thing out of here. So just one more look at the tractor and tell me what you guys think. And I'm finally glad I got done working with this thing. It was just really getting to be a pain, but it was. I think it was definitely worth it. This tractor definitely had some potential, and like I said, I didn't want to, you know, get rid of it because it was from the original owner. So, and he attempted to take care of it since it was new. So, if you come across a tractor and you think you want to get rid of it, think again. That's all I have to say, because I see so many people scrap these things when they don't need to be scrapped. There's still hope left, you know. And this thing's only 13 years old. I mean, the newer ones don't tend to be as good as the old ones, but there's still some hope left. And a lot of work, but it was definitely worth it. Now I'll get a little money for it, and I can put that either towards some attachments for the 210 or towards my new pickup truck, which will be here, you know, at some point in the future. So, we'll see. Thanks for watching. Comment, rate, and subscribe.